AITA for disrespecting my partner's culture by calling pasta noodles. Pretty much the title. My partner, M23, said I, F20, disrespect his Italian heritage, culture because I call pasta noodles instead of pasta. I don't see what the big deal is. It's like getting mad at someone for calling a charging adapter a box or a cube. They're all the same thing. I'd understand if I was purposely mispronouncing the dishes themselves, but I am not. I'd even understand they were used almost exclusively in Italian culture, but they aren't. Have Italian friends, even knew someone straight from Italy, and no one's ever said anything about me calling them noodles, so I don't understand why it's such a big deal, but he gets pretty upset, so I feel like I might be tough. But at the same time, a part of me feels like he's overreacting. Edit. To clear things up, we don't talk AB pasta noodles often, really only when I am making some fast late-night food for myself and he asks and it just slips out, like once every 1 to 2 months. I always apologize after I realize and I don't go out of my way to do it. I called them noodles literally my whole life, as did my parents plus friends, so I thought it was normal to call them that. Literally the first person I've ever met to have a problem with it, so I am asking if I am disrespecting the culture when I call it noodles instead of pasta, because if the roles were reversed I honestly wouldn't care.
AITA for asking to split the check? This happened tonight and has kept me awake. I had a third date with a guy that I've been chatting with for 2 months. First time we're going out to dinner, his suggestion, picked the place and wanted to treat me. It's not a cheap place by any stretch. We get there, are making small talk and looking at the menu. I am hungry and decide on an entree. Ask him what he's ordering and he's undecided. Waitress comes back to our table with our drinks and we start to order. I order my entree, and then he proceeds to order a few appetizers and one of the most expensive items on the menu plus sides. I'm a bit wide-eyed at this. The waitress kinda gives him some side-eye but writes it down. Maybe I've been on Reddit too much, but a red flag flares in my brain and I blurt out, "Could we do 2 separate checks?" Waitress says, "Sure, that's not a problem," and goes to put our order in. Guy is sitting across from me red-faced, says, "Why separate checks? Didn't you hear what I said? I wanted to treat you tonight." I realize I really don't have a good reason for it without outright hitting on his character, so I say, "I appreciate that you wanted Toto that for me. I feel more comfortable paying for my entree." He kind of mumbled a fine, excused himself from the table for a bit, came back, and the rest of dinner was incredibly awkward. Complete 180 from our first 2 dates. End of the night comes sand, he hardly even says good night before he's off into the night. My friend group laughed at me and couldn't believe I did that. Notable comment was, "Dude was going to buy you a nice dinner and you basically shat on him at the table." I still view his ordering habits as a red flag, but since not a single person in that friend chat said I wasn't an AmItheAsshole. AITA for asking to split the check. Updating to answer from frequently asked things. He had stated previous dates that he was being extremely frugal due to some major financial goal she had. Our first 2 dates were very inexpensive. The dinner was a surprise based on his comments previously. It's not how much he ordered or what specifically he ordered, but the cost alone. It was well over $200 and it made me uncomfortable. I didn't know the restaurant, and didn't have time to look it up ahead of time, so I wasn't aware of the cost until I sat down. Paranoia came from a TED Talk I had watched, plus a major anxiety around dining, money that I have. I accept that I was an AmItheAsshole for how I did this. I should have brought it up when I first realized the prices on the menu at minimum and not when the waitress was there, especially if it made me uncomfortable, and will be sending him an apology once it's more into the morning.
AITA for oversalting my BIL's food? I, 29M, love to cook, and even more so when I cooking for other people. I'm also the kind of person who likes to be good at everything I do, so I put in a lot of effort into cooking and also always ask for feedback so I can make it better the next time. The one thing I ask for is that whoever I'm cooking for takes 1 bite before adding anything to it for 2 reasons. 1. I want to know how my cooking turned out. 2. It's kind of rude to assume someone's cooking is lacking before you even try it. I understand that people have different tastes and palates, and I wouldn't ask them to not put any more salt, pepper, or other seasonings after they try it. I just ask for one bite so I can get actual feedback. My Bill, 36M, doesn't agree with me on this, and when I've asked him to just try it before adding salt, he gets heated and says that he knows what he likes and he should be able to do what he wants with his own food. I fully understand and support him eating his food the way he likes, truly, but at the end of the day, how does he know whether or not I've salted my food enough if he doesn't take a bite first? Like I said, I'm always trying to improve, so I make changes dependent on people's feedback, so the recipes change every time I make them, adding a little bit here and taking away a little bit there, so there's not way for him to know how my next dish will come out. I also don't cook for him all that often, maybe once or twice a month when the whole family is over. Anyway, the last time I cooked for the family, I made sure to put extra salt in because that was the feedback I got the last time I made that specific dish. Another thing to note is that Bill adds salt to all of his food, and it's always a substantial amount of salt. When I served Bill his plate, yes, he can serve himself, I just like to also put effort into the presentation. I told him that I added more salt than usual, so he should try it before he adds salt. He said, "I'll do whatever I want with my food, thanks," and just brushed me off. We sit down to eat and he immediately starts salting his food like usual. Everyone else is trying it and saying it's really good, and they give me a solid 8/10. I specifically ask for a rating on a scale of 1 to 10. Bill takes a bite and makes a face. He's very fair, and so it really shows when he's irritated because he gets really red, and he was red as a brick. I asked him what was wrong with it, and then he accused me of over-salting his food on purpose so that he'd ruin his food when he added more salt. Here's where I may be the I responded by saying that maybe if he tried the food first, then he wouldn't have over-salted it himself by adding more salt. He got pretty salty, pun intended, over what I said, and my sister called me petty for messing with someone else's food, and now he's refusing to eat what I cook. My mom is a peacekeeper, so she's telling me to apologize, and my dad doesn't think I did anything wrong. So AITA. I added more salt to the whole dish before serving it to anyone. He got the same amount of salt as everyone else before he added salt on his own plate. ETA 2. I'm not sure if this matters, but I don't stare at people while they eat, and I wait until we're all done and we're doing dishes for feedback. I agree with commenters that it'd be strange to just stare, wide-eyed and waiting for everyone to take their first bite. Also, I don't mind how anyone likes their food, they can have it as salty as they want. I just ask that they take a bite first instead of assuming that I won't be to their liking. I'd also never say anything about it to anyone I wasn't extremely close with. ETA 3. It's very common in our family to give honest feedback on stuff. My mom and her crafts, my dad with his cooking and woodworking. So it's very normal for us to have the kinds of interactions.
AITA for ruining someone's dinner because I didn't accommodate a family friend with a gluten intolerance. My husband and I, 34, both have decently large families. On occasion, I'll host family get-togethers for everyone to catch up on things, drink or just hang out. I'm in charge of cooking dinner for everyone, and sometimes my close family will help with the cooking. There were 2 different times at a get-together where I don't recognize someone there and my husband wouldn't either, even my mom or aunt didn't know who they were. I found out it was just a distant cousin of mine. So seeing people I don't recognize or know who they are is a reoccurring thing I just had to get used to with 2 of our families this big. I hosted a get-together last night, and it wasn't as big as some of the other ones I've been to or hosted in the past, but I did see a woman who I didn't recognize. I didn't mind it, but I asked my husband who the woman was, and he told me she was a friend of his uncle. I finish up cooking with my aunt and everyone comes in to set up their plates. The family friend came up to me and asked me if I made anything without gluten. I apologized and told her no, I didn't. She asked me if I could make something and I told her it took me nearly the whole day to cook and that I just want to sit down and relax now. She got defensive and said that if I'm making dinner for all of these people that there should at least be someone else that's gluten-free. I told her that there is no one that I know of in my family that has a gluten intolerance, and if I knew if she was going to be here I would have made something for her. She yelled at me, saying that I ruined this for her, which I was confused about. Ruined what? And that she's never going to come back here. My husband's uncle came in and told me that I should just make her something to eat and to just get it over with, and I told him no. She can eat whenever she has opportunity to. I don't want to get her sick and that I'm tired and done with cooking 4th night. They both ended up leaving and I was talking to my husband about it and he got mad at me saying that I pretty much ruined the dinner for them and that I should have just made her something to eat and that his uncle will probably not come by here again. AITA?